Hello, hello. You're all very, very welcome. We're just getting just opened up the gates there, so letting everybody come through. You're all very welcome back to the second masterclass of 2026. This is the February edition. Gonna give a few announcements that have taken place this month because it's been a really, really prolific month in the world of generative AI with loads of different announcements. So I'm going to give a bit of a whistle-stop tour of what's taken place, what's going on, some fun stuff for you to kind of be aware of, some announcements, what's going on around the country and with our partner hubs, and then our three speakers today. So I was just having a quick chat with Rose. Yeah, that's me. And these are our three speakers today. So Rose, Connor, and Jared going to cover very, very different areas, very different perspectives. So each of them will have approximately 20 minutes. And like always, drop questions into the chat, keep it interactive. If there's anything you want to know, a lot of time people are asking for what were the prompts? Can we share them in the chat? So don't be shy with anything like that. First off, can I get kind of a show of where everybody is dialing in from today? If you want to drop your county or your city or your organization, anything like that, that just gives us an idea who you are, where you're based, and if there's any connections that can be made during the call today, that's always fun. So get the chat going there and say hello. And if you want to drop LinkedIn, if you're interested in making a couple of contacts, it's always good to get that going. Okay, so I'm going to jump into this. So I use napkin.ai to make this slide, and I'm loving Napkin at the moment. I don't know if anybody is trying it. It's an Irish startup and it's doing pretty cool stuff. So these are the three announcements that we want to go through today. So Anthropic, OpenAI, and Agentic AI. And some of the speakers might touch on this as well, because I'm sure it's disrupting absolutely everything everywhere. So Anthropic, who is Claude. So if anybody's been using Claude for the past while, dropped two new versions this week. And I've been trying this out as well myself, and very, very impressed. It has saved me thousands on engineering bills. But what this kind of means for you, this was an enterprise solution that was available more so for businesses. Now they're putting it in the hands of ourselves. So we get to put large data sets, massive amounts of text in all at once, and it's working collaboratively. So it's asking other AI and other agents, and it's working together. The response takes longer. It's not the immediate ask it a question and shoot something out straight away. It takes a little bit longer, but you get really, really tight information. It's brilliant at giving you Excel spreadsheets that are properly headed up. You would have seen Rudy last month give some examples of that. It's really, really powerful. So the Sonnet version, Sonnet 4.6 is the cheaper one. It's about €16 per month. And then obviously the Opus 4.6, that's a bit more expensive. But the exciting thing about this is that Sonnet can pretty much do everything that Opus can do. So just the quote there at the bottom, this is no longer asking a chatbot a question. You're giving them a big, messy job. And I'm telling you, I gave it a big, messy job, and it really handled it very, very well. Next thing, OpenAI, they launched Frontier, AI co-workers. Again, this is following the same format, not just an assistant. This is multiple agents working with you. So connecting your CRM, your emails, your documents, your databases, all in one space. Simply put, Frontiers like giving your company digital staff members you can train, supervise, and assign tasks to. This might sound scary for for some companies, thinking that everybody can be replaced. It's not. It's to elevate them at their current tasks and to understand how to disseminate information. So it's another really exciting one. And then the other one, agentic AI, is becoming mainstream. So agentic AI, it doesn't just respond to acts and plans, it completes the task in full. And it's almost, it's a co-worker that you share information with, that shares information back. And we can see from these large organizations that are currently actively using it and putting out products and services in and around it. So businesses everywhere are now treating AI as part of the workforce, not just an experiment. So these three examples are just showing a big shift in what we were seeing as just checking something out, tinkering it to see if it was able to give you some prompts or help you with small tasks, to now actually being able to cope with large amounts of information and data and work with you. Okay, so what this means for ordinary businesses, AI won't just answer questions, it will do the work. Think Research, drafting reports, analyzing data, planning tasks, coordinating information, updating systems. And again, the exciting thing about this is that this is available to everyone. Everyone can do this now. It's not for the cohort that were experimenting in the background in the first place. It's become the norm. The powerful anthropic models no longer require enterprise budgets. This opens the doors for SMEs to use this technology. So when, like as I was saying, bigger companies would have been able to afford this previously. Now this is why it's exciting for this type of audience. If you're thinking about it in your current role, if you're a team of under 150 people and you do have marketing, ops, HR, all the operational departments, how these can support you now. And also, you don't need to be technical. I'm not overly technical, and I'm able to navigate these. I'm able to speak to them. I'm able to get them to support me in my work. These systems work with natural language, telling them what you do is like messaging a colleague. So that high level, detailed information that you need to provide into it is not required. And then it's thinking about business. So why should we try AI? But part of our daily work what part of our daily work can AI run for us? So then another development, and I know our speakers might touch on this as well, the Digital Ireland report was released last week, and what this means for you, and it's basically how Ireland is viewing from a government level, how they're viewing our uptake of AI and what their expectation is for employees, businesses, companies from this as it rolls out over the next couple of years. So the probably the most point here is digital AI adoption is no longer optional. The chance to sit on the fence has moved. So whether you're interacting with it or not, whether your team is, whether you need to be aware, you need to put a policy in place, and you need to have a plan around, are you going to upskill? Are you going to engage? Something needs to happen. So SMEs are a priority segment due to clear evidence of lagging adoption. So it has been shown that Irish SMEs haven't been adopting as quickly as expected, as hoped, as the information is there that's provided. More support is coming. Skills programs, infrastructure, cybersecurity, and AI guidance. So a lot more programs, similar to programs and offerings that we're delivering. More of this will be coming down on the line, and you'll hear it from government agencies, Enterprise Ireland, etc. Ireland is doubling down on being a European AI and digital regulation hub. You may have heard this from our involvement with regulations like the EU AI Act and different councils that have been set up. We're really positioning ourselves to be a very forefront player in this, which is excellent. Connectivity is strong enough nationwide. This is going into and maybe everyone doesn't agree with this, but this is going down to our Wi-Fi. There's generally no black spots in the country, so everybody has access. So if you have access, you have a computer, you can get online and you can use these tools. Just a very quick snapshot on that. But these are three of our followers. Roisin Bennett is going to speak on the MasterClass in a couple of weeks, who wrote really good summaries of that digital report. So just sharing them here, 3 really cool people to follow. Aisling Mooney is a partner of ours over in Green Tech HQ. She also shared a post. And of course, Mark Kelly from AI Ireland. Very good people to follow if you just want to keep on top of what's happening, any updates, any announcements, any new solutions. And they're 3 voices that I trust. So what's happening around the country? Dublin this week. So RDI Hub will be representing at this event in the Adapt Centre. AI Squared is a really cool one. I've included the QR code if you want to check it out a bit more. If anybody is Dublin based and they're interested in it, this is again adopting AI ready solutions for SMEs. We're going to have some of the speakers there at the bottom. We're going to have John Dirk and IDA and a few others, very much from a learning perspective. So on the back of the digital report, we'll get to hear what they're thinking, what they're going to roll out, and most importantly for everyone here, what discounts or what will be available at a reduced rate if you are an Irish SME. So you can register for that one. What's happening in the Northwest? So our partners over in Portershed, they're running this session with local councils from Galway, Mayo and Roscommon. Again, the QR code is included here. This is taking place next Wednesday in Portershed in Galway City. So RDI Hub will be facilitating this session alongside them and the 30 or so SMEs that will have room to support on the day and going through their branding, marketing, sales, operations. So the foundational models to support them in their AI journeys. And then what's happening in Southwest over in Green Tech HQ, they're rolling out a 3-part series of AI support workshops. So the QR code is included again for this one. So Aisling, I believe, is going to be leading out on this, and what you'll learn, again, getting you familiar with the foundation models, your ChatGPT, Perplexity, Cloud, how to use each of them, get more comfortable with prompting. So that's session 1. And then if you follow the QR code, you'll get to see what the 3 sessions are about. So if you're in the Wexford area or surrounds, get in touch with the team there. Okay, and then that brings me on, just I'll touch base on our program, the AI Navigator program, which is why and how we do this masterclass, how we reach out to you every month. The 4 key pillars of support that are involved in this, the masterclass, of course, we do strategic planning days to help companies define their challenges and support them the whole way through on a 12-month program. We do regular office hours so your team can check in. Let us know how they're doing. Is there uptake amongst the team? Where are you finding bottlenecks? And then there's staff training, which is in Copilot, prompt engineering, these types of areas to get everybody using it. So the AI Navigator program is open to SMEs all over Ireland. If you're familiar with your de minimis balance, that makes the conversation a lot quicker. But if you've worked with Enterprise Ireland, so they're the kind of supports that we're offering. These are some of the companies that are currently on the AI Navigator program. They go across energy, manufacturing, a lot of hotel groups, hospitality. So it's very, very varied, and it's fundamentally getting into the weeds of where the challenges are and where do we think AI automations can support their business to help them become more functional. And then our delivery partners I mentioned, so obviously there's ourselves, Portishead in Galway and Green Tech HQ in Wexford. So if you're close to any of those hubs, if you have a relationship with any of them, if you want to touch base, they are our partners on this program delivering these supports. So check in with them, and if they're on the call today, you can say hello. Okay, cool. That's everything from me. Just a bit of a quick update of what's been happening this past month. So I'm going to hand over to Rose now, who will be our first speaker. We'll leave some time for Q&A at the end, but during her presentation, you're more than welcome. Pop some questions into the chat, keep the conversation going, and Rose will be happy to answer some questions. So Rose, I will stop sharing.
Thank you for inviting me today. This community is so important because everything is changing so quickly, and it's hard for an individual or a small business to absorb everything that's happening all the time. So it's really nice to have like one point of community where we can share insights from our experience. So I've been working with CEOs, managing directors for the last few years, and I've managed businesses over the last 25 years, mostly in commercial strategy. And over the last few years, when I'm advising managing directors or teams, before, everybody wants to grow their business and grow profit, but before we can even start on that, a real theme is to look at the capacity of the current team, because sometimes a team can get really nervous about a CEO or a managing director having ambitions for growth when they say, well, we're already at capacity and we're already stressed, perhaps. So a lot of what when I join a business to look at their growth strategies, the first thing we have to do is look at the current capacity and see how we can remove some of the bottlenecks. And AI promises so much in that regard. So I'm just going to share with you some of my experiences over the last few years. And what I'm hoping you'll leave with is just a way of spotting the operational problems behind the day-to-day noise before you start your analysis of how to use automation or AI in your business, and then just how you might decide where to use automation or AI and where not to use it. And then I've got a really nice case study of just a really nice small accounting practice in Roscommon. So a lot of the work I do is with professional services. And BBO Accountants, the managing director there, Solderi Morales, had a really strong vision that she wanted to introduce and embrace automation in her business. And that it's been very successful for her over the last year and a half. And then some pointers as a starter plan you might take back to your team or your clients on how to get started, because it is overwhelming, and there's lots of promise, but there's also a lot of anxiety around AI and automation. So, as I'm sure everybody knows here, AI is not the strategy, but it can be talked about in that terms, and that's what I notice. People want to start talking about AI or start talking about automation, but really the most valuable thing is to come back to what we as people want from our businesses, and keep that strategy in our heads, what is aligned with our own values and our goals and our mission as a business, and then to begin to look at the digital tools and the automation to reduce the repetition, the waiting, and the rework. And there are loads of automation and Gen AI tools. Before we even begin with that, though, just to look at strategy, and then leaving the automation tools to the things that don't necessarily bring us joy in life, which is often the repetition and the close perhaps data entry work at a very basic level. And over the years, what I've noticed is, well, there might be, so often clients will come and say, look, really want to grow the business. I want to put in AI and like fix stuff. And the hardest part, and a lot of people on the call are probably experiencing this already or are going through it at the moment, which is you're feeling stuck and overwhelmed, because the beginning is the really hardest part of this work, where you've got a bit of a mess, and it's fun. It doesn't feel like a mess perhaps to their clients or to their customers, but behind the scenes, the team is working really hard, and a lot of the information is in subject matter experts' heads, or usually in a small business, it's in the managing director's head, or it's in a person's head who's been there for 25 years, and there's no need to have the clear, up to then, there hadn't been no need to have those clear processes. So while it isn't kind of the attractive part of the work of automating your business, it is really essential that we start addressing this in the first instance before we introduce automation. And there are so many experts and fabulous insights from newsletters and YouTubes, etc., and articles. But what I found most helpful is to hone in on some of the experts that I've enjoyed listening to most. Ethan Mollick, if you can find him on a podcast, if you haven't heard from him, he has some really good insights into starting principles. He's a professor in Wharton, and he has some starting principles. And he says to treat AI like a person. And that's certainly, you'll be used to that using for Gen AI, but even when you're using software, you really want to, once you've got your strategy down, define what is it you want this specific piece of software or the tool or the Gen AI to do for you. And treat it like a person with a job description. Give them the role and keep your humans on the decisions, and set the guardrails in place. I worked with a client recently where we got quite a bit ahead in a project to automate some repetitive processes, which were taking a long time for the sales team to do. But there was not alignment in the senior management team as to what data can be used. So setting out that governance from the beginning is really important also, depending on the size of your company. If you're a medium-sized company, I would say it's absolutely essential that the whole board is aligned on the governance of how data is going to be used, and keeping in mind the EU AI Act and your own ethics and values as a company, because this really caused quite a delay in the implementation of the automation in that example, and that's very common apparently in smaller businesses or even in larger business. I'd say start by experimenting, and just work and get the confidence built in the team. One of the things that Ethan Mollick suggests is, he says, bring your everybody is a subject matter expert in what they're doing every single day. So if it's even an entry level person or somebody who's just doing the same job for the last 20 years, they will have insights into their own job that nobody else will have. An IT person or a software provider won't know the detail of the concerns that they have, or the delays that are causing them really more time than they need during the day. So bring that SME, bring that subject matter expert into, and even assign them the role of spending 20% of their time looking at reducing, or looking at tools that might reduce their workload or reduce those repetitive, inefficient tasks. And then ultimately to remind your team to be the human in the loop, that you're responsible for the output. In a lot of the marketing teams that I've worked with, sometimes content can be created without the sources being checked. And it might look very nice, but it's still sounding AI, and you don't want that to be the case. So some starting principles like that by Ethan Mollick I find very helpful. He also says you don't need a chief AI officer. AI is becoming, or has become, really integral and needs to become more integral in all of our jobs. So we all need to be the experts, even if it is difficult for us to, can be difficult, or people may have, you said at the beginning, you're not a technical person. I'm not a technical person, but I understand I have to use those tools in order to reach the commercial outcomes that I want for my clients. So we all need to embrace AI as a tool and a support for us in our work. This is the client case study I have, just to tell you about briefly. It's a accounting practice in Roscommon, and the managing director there is Solderi Morales, and she had a vision for an accounting practice which was supported by automation, and that was good profitable boutique accounting practice with an enjoyable work-life balance for her. And we started out with that as a vision and a plan. And the plan really was scuppered by a sudden influx of 50 new clients, as she incorporated, which she really doubled her client base overnight. So we had to urgently look at how quickly and immediately we needed to accelerate that pace of change. And what they did was, rather than run to look at new tech, they used what they had already, and they went deeper with that tech. And that is a feature of my experience with clients also over the last couple of years. It's very attractive to look at shiny tools, but often we have subscriptions to softwares and that are already doing fabulous things. What Solderi looked at was what in the accounting profession Dext and Xero could do, and went deep with those softwares and understood the detail of the expansion they had and the focus they had on for the future. They incorporated AI into their businesses, and how that could help Solderi's team. So they really embraced, they went on all the webinars for Dext and Xero. They trained themselves deeply in all of the aspects of what those softwares could do. And that had an enormous effect on the efficiency in their business. Before, there was just far too many work requests coming in on different emails, MS Teams, into the systems. It was just not a sustainable situation. And in professional services, of course, if we're spending too much time on a client, we're going to need to charge the client too much. It's not fair on the client. It's not giving good customer service, and it is not profitable. So what changed was this discipline of using just the channels, just one channel for messaging and through the system. So now everything went into the workflow system. XPM is a part of Xero. So we took on all of the various aspects of Xero, and there was fewer side conversations, really clear requests, and more visibility on the client budgets and the profitability. So just really clearer picture. This took quite a while. It took possibly a full year before, when I spoke to them a few weeks ago, it was just so really nice for me to hear that relief from the managing director and from the team of how much more enjoyable work is in the office and with clients when things are working so smoothly. But it took time for that to happen, and discipline. So the outcomes are obvious: less time spent per client, but more time for more valuable conversations and consultancy and advisory. One of the things that Solgeri would say is to select tools carefully. So she will always look at, and I think this is it's a good way to think about it when you're looking at software solutions, to look at their product roadmap, because they, for example, did use a bot for about 6 months. They no longer need to use the bot because Xero has incorporated what the bot already did only very recently. So software is changing and moving very quickly. And just to see what their product roadmap is, and is it going to meet your vision for your business? And also a big difference in hiring for that willingness to learn and improve processes, and very open to technology, rather than seeing AI as a nice to have. That she's hiring for people who are really enthusiastic about the future of automation and AI and what it can bring to the workplace. So if you're starting out on this journey, I'd say when you start with your strategy and you're looking at where should automation go first, look at the things that you find most annoying. And I would say bring your whole team in on this. It's fine to hire a consultant, and it's good to hire a consultant externally, but that consultant really needs to listen to everybody on the team and understand what is happening, and to see where time is being lost. And time is the most important aspect of the saving that you want to bring here. And everybody will be enthusiastic about that. You know, there are parts of everybody's job that you don't want to be doing, and collecting that data and then understanding where you can find savings is really valuable. And then something that you always will keep for yourself as humans is your own vision, often pricing decisions, compliance sign-off, and of course, like any strategic trade-offs and complex client conversations. Humans buy from humans, and we need other humans to understand us. So really to maintain that in your business. So just as 30-day start plan. It's not necessarily going to be 30 days. You could do faster, you could do longer, depending on your environment. But to start with finding that friction, where do we lose time every week? And pick about 3 bottlenecks. Don't get overwhelmed with the 20. Focus on those top 3 bottlenecks and standardize before you automate. So places like accounting practices usually have good workflows, but most of your businesses are going to have workflows. To find the owner and stop those duplicate channels where requests are coming in from multiple channels and it's really hard to manage where they're coming from. And then just pilot one workflow, and that gives the team confidence that they're able to implement these changes, and then just review it and scale and keep looking at it. And really it's about adopting innovation throughout your business in a constant way. So it's continuous improvement. You're not going to stop with this. Some of the mistakes I've seen are, I've made this mistake myself, where you're really enthusiastic about a particular tool. Somebody has told you, get that tool, it's fabulous. But look at what you have already and see and engage with that software. Do full training in it and really know what the product roadmap is for that software, because that software may be able to deliver what you're 90, even 70% of what you want. Don't try and change everything at once, and do put in your workflow owners. Assign your owners to those workflows. Who is creating these workflows, and have it owned. Another big mistake is not understanding your baseline measures. So track your time on your tasks, first of all, and then go back and see what has improved. And of course, don't let the AI output go unchecked. And don't assume whoever you've designated as the AI person is going to fix it all, because we're all responsible here in the team, if you can have that as a starting principle. And then finally, as I'm sure you also know, but it's just a reminder around management. And what Ethan Mollick says is that the skills that make you good at AI are not the prompting skills, they're management skills. So it's that leadership of assigning the best resources and getting the best people on your team to score the goals that you want, and embracing it as another person on your team. So I'd say get clear on the bottleneck, standardize your workflow, and then use the automation and Gen AI to increase the flow and free up your team to make those judgments and decisions to reach your goals. So thank you for listening to me, everybody.
Great, good stuff. Thanks so much, Rose. That was beautiful. That was great. I just see Gavin is putting a comment into the chat there. I treat my AI assistant as an executive assistant, which is I think what a lot of us are kind of doing at the moment. I don't know if there's any chats or any questions from the group. You're more than welcome to drop them in the chat. Rose, I just wanted to kind of ask roughly around timelines. So I know you shared a 30-day strategy, but normally when you start engaging with a new customer, a new client, what can this be achieved in 6 months? Can it be 12 months from the time that you work with a team or a company? What do timelines look like?
Yeah, I think, for example, I'm working with a client now, and I just said, because I didn't, on a first meeting, you don't know the extent of the documentation of workflows.
Yeah.
And so what I said was, just give me 3 months to understand and get under the hood a bit. And so I just ask for that 3 months so that we can understand what the current situation is. And then I usually give an update once a month to say, look, we only have 75% of the workflows documented. You can't put in automation in here yet. But it also takes a bit of time to establish trust in the team.
Of course, yeah.
Before the team, I've encountered quite a lot of anxiety around automation. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing the same.
Yeah.
Um,
Like feedback from our customers and clients, 100%.
yeah,
Anxiety around, I guess, like policy. I know I shared some exciting announcements that happened this month, but on the back of them, that's also we're leaving ourselves wide open. And that's I'm speaking as an individual. If you're speaking as a company, if you're a CEO or managing director and you're responsible for how your team rolls this out, you have to be thinking of the guardrails immediately, which is not the fun side, which isn't the we're getting stuff done quicker. So
yeah.
it's almost we do need that voice in the room constantly of where the boundary is and how far you can go.
Yeah, so for timeline, I would say, you're better off spending at least 3 months on that side of it, on your guardrails and on your workflows, um, before you're ready to go, I think. And even analyzing what training your team wants and asking them to analyze their own work to see what it is that they'd like to automate most.
Just one question here from Anne in the chat. How do you find testing these automation pieces? How do you know it's working correctly? Any guidance?
Yeah, I mean, what so in that particular case study, which I think is it's the most successful implementation I've seen, and it started with the founder vision. She had a really clear vision of what she wanted, and what she said was, so I would say in terms of testing, like a lot of these softwares are so sophisticated. They know what they're going to do. They know what they're doing. They usually have about a 7 day or a few weeks trial subscription before you have to invest. So I'd say know really clearly what it is, very clearly what it is you want to do, and then do a small test and just use the free subscription for that purpose. If you can get on a webinar and ask them direct questions and say, can it do this? Because they won't say it, a
Your
reputable software
salespeople.
company. Yeah. Well, if you ask the really specific question, they're not going to. They may tell you it's a planned feature, for example. So I would say use the free trials, get to know the software as intimately as you can. And the software companies love questions because that's where they get their they love complaints. That's where they get their new features and new bugs, highlighted.
Their feedback. I'm
Yeah,
going to wrap that up there because we need to jump on. We've
yeah,
another two great speakers to get to. Rose, thank you so much for your time. That was brilliant. Connect with Rose on LinkedIn and you can forward questions to her there and ask her directly. Brilliant. So Connor McCarthy is up next. Connor, can you hear me? We'll do a little bit
Yep.
of a sound
Can you
check.
all hear? You can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. Great.
Yeah, brilliant.
Do you want to share your slides there? And
Yes,
we can
I
see
will
that they come
send
up
it.
okay, and then I will let you take the reins.
Okay. Can everyone
Brilliant.
see that?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
all good. There you go.
First of all, thank you so much for having me, Maeve and Garrod and everyone at RDI Hub. To echo what Rose said earlier, the RDI Hub is absolutely brilliant, genuinely in just helping all these businesses across Ireland just try to get a grip on just even a little bit of AI so that they can make that kind of forward momentum. So, yeah, again, thank you for being here. And just to kind of one takeaway from Rose's thing that I really liked, it's that idea of slowing down before you speed up. I think AI has this kind of sensibility of, you just plug it in and turn it on and we're away. But actually, a lot of the time when you're doing kind of core foundational work, you do need to slow down. But then you'll see the gains later on. So I've got 20 minutes, and my plan here today is to show you how you can create your own kind of thinking partner for decisions, something that can shine a light on the parts of decisions that are sometimes made in the dark. I love a flashy demo. I love the latest tools. I'm into them all. I use quite a few of them. I put most of them down, to be honest. But I want to give you something today that you can understand. If you want to build along, you can do that as well. But I'm going to give you in the chat, I'm going to give you the resources that you can do this later yourself. It shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes to set up, and then you'll have it forever. So I want this to be something that you can absolutely replicate and use today. Just a little bit about me first, before we get into this. My whole career has been about making something useful out of something complex. I started as a software engineer, somehow ended up running one of the biggest outdoor events in Ireland, Street Performance World Championship. It's not often you see a sword swallower on the screens of the RDI hub. We did a load of world records for sword swallowing and the most amount of people dressed as Where's Wally and all this kind of stuff. And it was amazing. And we kind of always talked that it was about how it was like organized chaos. And that's something that seems to follow me throughout my career, turning what seems like chaos, like the craziness of AI, into something like useful, something you can actually put into practice. I got back into software. I founded companies, had failures, had some wins. I actually wrote a book called The Unstuck Book, which is about helping leaders make better decisions. And now I basically help leaders understand and integrate AI, not just kind of talk about it. I've been very fortunate to work with some fantastic people, as well as with some local startup accelerators, etc. So yeah, it's great to be here to kind of share some of what I do. My company is called Threshold Partners, and we basically move between people who are stuck between strategy, decks, and actual implementation. We help you cross that gap. Okay, enough about me. I just want to talk about the big idea today. So I think a lot of people still treat AI the same way we treat search. And that's the instinct is to treat it like Google. It's the same kind of search box. You ask a question, you get an answer, and you move on. And it's in back and forth and back and forth. And that's fine, but it's kind of extractive in a way. It's a kind of a one way in and out situation. I think the best way to use AI is when you stay in conversation with it and almost let it shape your thinking, not just the output that you get from it. I liken it to the difference between R2D2 and Yoda. Okay, R2D2, as we know, is fast, obedient, gives the answer, literally a robot. Yoda, however, slower, more questioning, more kind of imparting more judgment rather than speed. You know the way Yoda asks those annoying questions of Luke, but they're actually the right questions to ask. That's the kind of mental shift that I'm hoping to impart today. And this really matters because AI is a brilliant decision-making partner, okay? It's not a decision maker. I know everyone knows this already. I'm just going to say it. You don't want to outsource your decision-making to AI entirely because it's not an oracle, but it's a brilliant simulator. So we're looking for better decisions more than just faster answers. I worked with Seth Godin for many years. I still do various projects with him. And he said something interesting one day that stuck with me. He said, as business leaders, all we do all day is make decisions. It's the number one thing we do. Everything from small decisions right up to the big ones that Rose was talking about. Like, how are we going to bring AI into our organization? How are we going to pivot to move in this direction? They're quite meaty decisions. So why not have an AI partner to help us make those decisions, to help us kind of expand our viewpoint before we commit to anything? The thing with AI, and I'm sure if you've used it for half a second, you've seen this. The thing with AI is it will always give you an answer. Always, always, always. Okay. It's kind of under the hood. It's the most basic system prompt is, be a helpful assistant. Like give something, don't give nothing. You're not rewarded for that. But it really doesn't care if it's right, which makes sense because AI has no skin in the game at all. Okay. It'll argue one side. And then if you say, well, argue the other side, it'll turn over and it'll argue that side as effectively. Okay. But you, as the decision holder, you have to live with the outcome. Okay. You're the business owner, you're the leader. You carry the weight of that decision, whether that's personal exposure, responsibility in your role, maybe there's often consequences. Okay. So that's on you. So you don't want AI making your decisions, but you want it helping you get ready to decide. So the bottleneck here is human judgment. But that's not a negative thing. That's not a flaw. It's actually the feature because the human judgment is the bit that we always want to own. The funny thing about decision making is that we're not always aware of how we make it. And if I did a poll in this room, I'd probably get 20 different answers of how people make decisions. Some people, and I've done this in various workshops, some people are really pros and cons or expected value, or like they'll fire up a spreadsheet and they'll go for it, and that's great. Some people are last minute deciders. This decision needs to be made at 12 o'clock today. What's the decision? Based on what we have, what's the decision? And some people are phone a friend. So I'll call my smart brother-in-law. He always knows what to say. And that's all fine. But the kind of underlying mechanics of those can often be hidden to us. And many bad decisions I've found, and I'm sure a lot of people have found this too, many bad decisions start with a fuzzy question or even the wrong question. So the quality of a good decision depends on how honestly it's framed. So what we're going to do now in a second is build a humble custom GPT. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, a custom GPT is basically like ChatGPT configured for a specific job. It's only available on the paid plans. At this stage of the AI game, if you're not paying for an AI tool, but you're using the free plan consistently, it's worth 20 quid a month to get intelligence on demand. I do highly recommend it. You can use ChatGPT. I'll mention later how you can use other platforms. Like you can do this as a Claude skill. You could do it as a Claude project, a Google Gem. The reason I'm using ChatGPT is just because at the moment it's the most widely used AI tool, even though Claude is kind of is coming up very fast. The instructions I'm going to give you today, they're entirely portable. Okay, the logic is the same. You can move it to any platform you want, whatever you're using. Again, I want to give you something you can build in 10 minutes and use today, not something that you'll see and then move on again. The 3-part framework I'm going to show you: frame, challenge, decide. Frame. So this is, I said it a second ago, this is maybe the most important bit. Knowing what you're actually deciding is more than half the battle. Okay, so the first thing this custom GPT does is help you figure that out in the first place. Then challenge. Then the AI kind of takes over and gives you back information, kind of highlighting maybe the things that matter that you've neglected to think about. So it's excellent at looking at alternative scenarios, blind spots, assumptions, second order thinking, that kind of stuff. It's really fantastic. And lastly, it kind of reflects back to you through these first 2 steps, your own reasoning in a way that you have a better idea of the decision at hand. Okay. And then the custom GPT ends. And I wanted it to come to an end because, again, with AI, it can go on for days and suddenly you find yourself looping on the same decision. So we actually do want to kind of come down to a focus. Yeah, so let me stop sharing this screen and I'll just start sharing. Okay, can everyone see this? Yeah, everyone see a ChatGPT screen?
Yeah.
Okay, I assume so. I did. Okay, yes, I got a thumbs up from someone. Thank you. So, oops, Daisy. There we go. Okay, just arrange my screens a little bit better. So to create a custom GPT, you go in here, you click create. So again, if you've made custom GPTs before, you'll be all over this. You'll know exactly what to do. If you haven't made them before, it's really simple. It's literally 3 things you need to input. Actually, before I do this, I'm going to share in chat the document that this is the document in chat. You've just got the document that I'm going to copy and paste the instructions from. Okay. So again, you can build along if you're fast on the keyboard, but equally, once this call is done, please do go and set this up for yourself. It's your own decision-making partner. Okay, so we're going to give it a name. Again, I'll walk you through it. I hope the demo gods are good to me today. Let's give it a name. Just call it decision partner. We give it a description. So a skeptical thinking partner to help you frame, challenge, and clarify important decisions. Skeptical is very, very important here because, as we know, AIs can be very sycophantic. They can just kind of go, do you know what? Your idea is brilliant, just go for it, without doing any kind of stress testing of our decision. And then the actual custom instructions, it's copy and paste. I'm obviously not going to go through the whole thing now, but can everyone see this? Yeah. So they're quite simple. I literally just, oh, by the way, I used ChatGPT to help me create these custom instructions. So pro tip, use the tool to use the tool. Basically, it just gives it a role, your thoughtful but skeptical decision partner. And then it goes through these 3 stages. Stage 1, clarify the decision. So help the user clarify their decision by asking these questions. Stage 2, pressure test the thinking. And then stage 3, where is it down here? Give back kind of decision closure. And then down below that, there's just various rules about, do's and don'ts and, how to wrap the conversation up. So let me close that. And that's it. You can do other, that's the most basic thing. Okay. Again, it's custom GPT. It's really simple. And that's the simplest way I can show you on a 20-minute demo of how to do it. You can get fancy and upload files here. So let's say you've got a company strategy document or a marketing strategy document. You can upload those files. I have a line in the custom instructions saying, if there's any files in the knowledge base, factor those into your decision, but you don't have to. Okay, you don't have to. You can keep it simple. So let's move my stuff around again. So let's give it a quick decision so we can see what it looks like. Yeah, this should. Okay, so sample decision. This could be anything. I know that I've been to pretty much every ODI Hub chat, so this is something of an average question that might come up for people now, given all the AI tools that are out there. Something like we're deciding whether to replace our current scheduling process with an AI-based system across all locations or start with a single location pilot. We want consistency, but we worry about training and adoption. Help clarify this decision. Now, context is everything. You should put more in there. Okay, I'm just doing this because it's a fast demo. Okay, put as much as you can in there. You can put your own role. You can put the consequences of this decision for you personally, for your business. You could put information about where the industry's at, where your business is at. Context is worth 80 IQ points. That's what people say. It's definitely true. The more you put in here, the better. So if we click go, first of all, so you can see how it's going through the stages. Again, over here at stage 1, clarify your decision. So before we dig in, it's asking a question. What's the broader context? What's happening in your business team or market? So let's just say we're heading for an acquisition. Okay. Again, give it more context, please. And then it asks, what are you deciding between? Is this a full technical rollout of this calendaring system? Or is this real decision about signaling innovation to buyers versus managing operational risk? Do you know what? We're signaling innovation to buyers. By the way, I'm hitting my dictation button. If you don't use dictation with your AI tools, really look into that. It's just nice to be able to hit a button and start talking. It's a very kind of natural way to interact with AI tools. What would be affected if this goes wrong? Who would be affected if this goes wrong? The deal itself. Okay. So it asked me first for more context. Do give it more context. Okay. Now what it's doing is it's reflecting to me some assumptions that may not hold in my thinking, risks and trade-offs that I might not be thinking about, a scenario that looks good up front but might fail later, and then a backfire scenario. Okay, so it's giving you back these 4. They're almost like warning shots in a way. They're things you may not have thought about. The things that are just pure blind spots, because it's human nature. We all have blind spots for this kind of stuff. So, and then it asks, anything here surprising or missing before we continue? I'll just pick one. I'll say this one. What's surprising to me is the idea of operational instability during diligence. Okay. So then it gives a little bit back. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you you're framing this decision correctly? So you can go back and forth on this, okay? I'm going to give it a 7, okay? Then it asks this, we're moving it to stage 3, where it's kind of bringing the decision into a close. So of all the risks and assumptions listed, which one matters the most and why? I'm going to say this guy. I'll just copy and paste it out this time. Yeah. So it reflects back to me that I'm most concerned about creating the appearance of innovation now that later reveals uneven adoption or hidden operational fragility. So in the instructions, I've kind of told it to start to narrow in at this point. Okay, narrow in on not the decision, but just show the user, show me the things that are on my mind that maybe I didn't realize were on my mind about this decision. So it says, here's 2 decision paths. 1, run a single location pilot. It's a good idea. 2, roll it out broadly, but delay external signaling, because I said earlier that signaling was a part. I'm just going to say option 1. Okay. And then it comes to an end. So it's taken this big idea, ask us some questions, boil it down, figure out what's actually working behind the scenes in terms of blind spots, assumptions, second order thinking, and giving me something I can work with, something that was actually probably not clear to me in the first place. And then it ends. Okay, you can then go and take this and start the process all over again. So you can kind of iterate on this with this custom GPT to help you make better decisions. And that's the custom GPT. I'm going to switch back now to a couple of slides. But that's it. I really do encourage you. You have the documents in the chat. There's a PDF and a Google Doc. It's very simple to create. And again, it's kind of transferable to different tools. So let me just pull up my last couple of slides. Okay, I think I should be back on my slides. Yes, it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. But I hope that showed the idea of, AI shouldn't make the decisions for you, but it can be a great decision-making partner. It's an amazing collaborator, no matter what you're doing. Again, create the custom GPT as soon as you can. This tool will work for you if you use it. I'm going to give you a challenge like 3 times this week. It's not magic. Decision-making, as I said earlier, as Seth pointed out, decision-making is a habit, and it's good to get good at that habit. It's not necessarily an event. Try it on your next hiring decision, pricing decision, a strategic pivot, anything you like. It works really well as a Claude project, as a Claude skill, as a Google Gem. Actually, you know what? I'll just show you. Sorry for the flipping around. I actually did put this into a Claude. So two very simple things I did. I literally popped those custom instructions into a Claude chat and just told it act as a decision partner for this conversation. Right. So you can do that if you use Claude. You can create a cool looking artifact in Claude because it does that really, really well. Yeah, you see over here, I just said, can you help me turn the following custom instructions designed for ChatGPT into an artifact? And it popped out this little kind of website thing, which again, breaks it down into 3 steps. You can make a Gemini gem if that's your thing. Yeah, very, very transferable, transportable. Okay, sorry, back to my slides, I promise, for the last time. Yeah, and this is actually my last slide, so thank you. I think I covered everything there. It was a whistle-stop tour. Sorry if I was speaking very fast. I was very wary of the 20-minute time, but if we've time for questions, then that's all the better.
Yeah, no, that's great. And even like if you want to go back to your last slide, yeah, this one here. So Frank was just asking in the chat, I suppose, to even kind of explain when you're saying you're creating custom GPTs, also how this can be done. I was saying in Microsoft World, this can be done in Copilot. They're called agents. Obviously, if you're Google House, Gemini, just to kind of say, yes, of course, you can connect your ChatGPT to your Google Drive, etc. But if you are already in one of those environments, if you're in Microsoft, you have an option to do it there. You can create agents and direct them very strategically, say for health and safety, and a new employee has to read a bunch of health and safety documents. You can create an agent and the employee can interact with the agent and be steered just at those health and safety documents. So I'm going to let you speak to how you use it across the different platforms, but this was just a bit of the dialogue that was going on in the chat.
No, no, thanks, Maeve. I often miss the chat. Yeah, this is absolutely transportable. Like you have those instructions. They're for Google, like for ChatGPT. Um, Agents in Microsoft Copilot, you can create, as I said, a Claude skill from this. Go into the tool you use, whether that's Google, Microsoft, etc., and just ask it. Just say, look, I've got these custom instructions for a custom GPT. What are the options here? Can I build this into a workflow? Can I make a gem? Can I make an agent in Copilot? Like it's very transferable across all those platforms.
Yeah. And just maybe if you could touch on why it's useful, because I think, say for me personally, I've probably been 2 years into using these tools, and my ChatGPTs it gets very busy. So
Mm,
when you get better at either creating spaces or environments or specific areas, I have one now specifically for work, work related and categorizing it. And I find creating custom GPTs and agents and different stuff, it helps me manage my searches, what I go to. If I have a question related to that again in a week or two's time, I'll go to that area. Instead of
mm,
opening a new chat every time and a new
mm,
dialogue where you're saying my role, my background, everything, it knows
mm.
everything. You've informed that GPT or that agent so they know what they're looking for. So you don't have to start that groundwork again, that prompting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like all a custom GPT is like a super fine-tuned version of ChatGPT.
Mm.
So in this case, it's your decision coach. And all it does is help you make decisions. And as I pointed out earlier, you could upload to the knowledge base, you could upload your personal data, your company data, whatever you like, and it'll reference that as part of its decision-making process. And you can be explicit, like make sure you use the company strategy when you're helping me make this decision. And yeah, like all the talk of like everyone thinks agents and da, 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 there, it's amazing what's possible now. But if you've never done this kind of thing before, this custom GPT is a great first step to kind of understand and get on that ladder of personalized AI tools.
Yeah. Just looking there, Gavin, question in the chat. Do you prefer ChatGPT or GPTs or the Claude project memory/instructions with the memory of who the business is?
This is becoming personal preference. Like Claude is really taking over at the moment. I've used
Having a
ChatGPT.
moment.
Yeah, it really is, and it's very very good. I mean, I use ChatGPT because I've used ChatGPT the longest. I am actually making a move to port everything that it knows about me over to Claude at the moment. I don't know if that's indicative or helpful for people. If you have access to both, do both because the project feature, ChatGPT has projects and Claude has projects also very, very good. A project is like it's an area of the tool where you can just kind of set it up for one specific purpose. Maybe you have a marketing project, and in there you can throw your brand guidelines, your marketing strategy, call transcripts, all that kind of stuff. And then you can give it instructions and say, right, this project is just about marketing, nothing else. Act as a marketing coach. So yeah, it really just kind of helps corral the capability.
Okay, brilliant. I'm going to wrap it up there so we allow enough time for Jared. Connor, thank you
Yeah.
so much. That was really informative.
Thank you.
Let
Thanks for having me.
you jump off there. And next up we have Jared. Yes, I can see you on my screen. Hi, Jared. How are you? All the way from the West Coast in Galway. Good stuff. So, Connor, I think you need to stop sharing, or can we? Okay, Connor, stop sharing. And Jared, if you want to pop up your slides there, if you want to come off mute and just say hello.
Thanks. I have to uh, apparently um, make it so that I'm allowed to share my desktop screen in my setting. Hold on just a second.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. Jared is the I guess
Uh,
I'm going to call you the founder of a very edgy, fun AI group in Galway in the Portishead, AI Slop.
Anti-slap.
Anti-slop. Sorry, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
no
What's
worries.
what's what's the one-liner? What's the pitch on it?
So basically, uh, I'll tell you when Zoom needs to quit and reopen so Mac lets me share screen, but I'll let you know in just a second.
Okay, cool. No problems. Oh, he has to jump off then. Okay, no problem. We'll just take a 30 seconds. He's a software engineer, so he should come back to us pretty quick. Won't be messing around for too long. You still on the call?
It's actually very refreshing to see other people struggling with sharing items on Teams or Zoom. We struggle with that as well a lot in our remote uh, company. So thanks for doing
Yeah,
that.
I think it's real. This is what
Sure is.
it's like for humans.
Yeah.
And also, to be fair, Zoom is generally for us one of the cleanest and the easiest.
Mm.
Teams we definitely have had issues with. Okay, good stuff. Here we go, Jared. Just want to unmute yourself there.
All right, sorry. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yeah, we can see your screen. We can see and hear
Perfect.
you.
Thanks for the patience. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm Jared Porcenalic, and like Maeve said, I have been running some workshops in Galway around anti-slap. That's the name of the workshops. And basically, the general idea is that, with proper structure and practices, a lot of this AI problems that we see can be kind of ironed out. And because of how AI works, it's not a rational thinker. So, there still will be issues. And that's why for most processes, it's really important to have quote unquote a human in the loop. And if you're chatting with an AI in ChatGPT and you're using a gem, for example, like you're already the human in the loop and there won't be any issues. But yeah. So before we get too far in, I just want to make sure that I give you guys an opportunity to get a pen and a paper because this is interactive and we'll talk about it later in the talk, but you're not getting out of it. You're going to be doing a little bit of work today. I can't have a meeting where everybody just sits and listens because that's not how learning happens. So sorry in advance. While you're getting the pen and paper, I will talk a little bit about theory and why I'm here. So what we're going to be talking about is context. So Connor just said context is, quote, everything. And that's true. Context is everything. And I have a good example of that being true. So I want to differentiate a little between a prompt and context. So a prompt is like steers, and a context is what's available to the AI, kind of like fuel for a vehicle. So prompt steering, saying where to go, context, what's available to help it get there. And I have a great example of this because there's one prompt I used and got two very different outputs, and the difference was context. And the prompt I used was the one you see here, drawing a box that describes a pelican case, and it got confused in one context and made a half pelican, half case. And then in the other context, it made what I would expect, which is a case you carry around like gear in or whatever. So my goal in this talk, I have two goals. The first one is I want to turn your pelicans into your pelicans. So if you've had issues in the past with like, the AI just doesn't work, it just doesn't output what I want, a lot of times that's just, based on the context. And so if we can provide better context, we can have better outcomes. My other goal is a little more concrete, especially for business people. We measure things in hours or money. And my goal is to save you 17 hours this year, which isn't a lot maybe, but for 20 minutes of a talk, I hope that's enough. The calculation's in the bottom right-hand corner. So I want to talk a little bit about what AI is. It is not intelligence. It's, a bit of a probability game. And it's not the world, right? So a lot of people say like AI has been trained on the internet, the whole internet. And that sounds like a lot, but really the truth is that's not the world. The world is everything that lives in your head, everything that your dog thinks or your cat thinks. Like the world contains a lot of information, and it probably doesn't contain the AI does not contain all of your business's information. So there's a lot of context missing from those models, which is why there's that upload document thing that we were talking about, or Connor was talking about. So uploading documents is introducing additional context. But even then, the world itself, like even the whole internet is being filtered and cleaned and trained and compressed. And that's what an LLM is a compressed version of information. So it's really, even though they're very, very powerful, they're not all-knowing, I guess. And you might be old hat at prompting by now. So, you may ask, what should I have for dinner? And then it comes up with a bunch of options and you go back and you're like, oh, that's not what I meant. I meant, what should I have for dinner? I'm a vegetarian. And so it comes up with a whole different set of options. So you're improving your prompting. And this is context. You're providing context. That is what it is. But I like to differentiate between the two because prompting, like I said, is steering and context is the fuel to help you get there. So if you really wanted to get a much improved answer, you could say, what should I have for dinner? I'm a vegetarian. By the way, here's all the meals I've ever had and how much I liked each one. And that is where AI can come up with the pelicans, because now it knows, what do you like in a meal? What have you enjoyed? And if you have the entire list of every meal you've had, it's going to probably come back with some options that are improved than over just prompting. So what is the limitation here? Why don't we just give it all of our documents all at once? Why do we even need an AI? Can't we just search or something like that? Well, AIs use tokens. I'm sure you've heard the term tokens before, but basically they're parts of a word, and they're not necessarily a whole word, but sometimes they are. So in this case, this sentence uses 6 tokens. And you have a token budget. So this is what the maximum number of tokens that an AI can use. And that's important because, if you're just chatting with AI, you're probably not going to hit that token limit. But as soon as you start giving access to G Drive, you might, because the context window is basically, that is your budget, right? So the context window is every, a maximum size, a limited resource, a common good, and you cannot exceed that size. So imagine looking out a window, right? And everything you see is in that context window. You can't peek around, you can't look around the corners, you just see out that window. So anything that lies outside of that, the AI can't see either. So you really have to fit everything that you want that's special and unique about your problem into that context window. So the LLM holds a compressed version of world knowledge. Your context window holds everything you're interested in. And what that includes is your prompt, of course. But it also includes the system prompt. So this is part of the context window. The system prompt is what ChatGPT appends to your prompt and then sends to its own model. So in ChatGPT, the prompt might include like, be a helpful AI assistant, don't do anything nefarious, be friendly, blah, blah, blah. And that takes up tokens. And it also includes all the previous questions you've asked in a chat. And this is really, really important, and I'll talk about it a little bit later why. And it also includes all the answers that have come back. So you can think of it as you're asking questions to ChatGPT, every new question you ask is sent with all the responses and all the previous questions in that context window. And this seems academic, but I definitely can assure you this makes a material difference in how quality your responses are, and I'll talk about why in a second. It also includes the documents and images you send in. And a critical part of that is images can be really token heavy. So just keep that in mind. So how big is the context window? About the length of Ulysses by James Joyce. So if you can imagine, you're not going to have a conversation that's probably as long as Ulysses by James Joyce. That's fine. So in a regular conversation in ChatGPT, you don't have to worry about the context window too much. There's an exception to this where, like if you imagine you start reading Ulysses and then you get halfway through and all of a sudden it's a Marvel comic book, you might be confused. So if you're having a chat about like one subject and then you switch subjects in the middle of it, the AI will also be confused. So it's important to clear out your context and start over if you're going to start like a new train of thought. So what happens if you want to give it access to your G drive, right? And you have more documents in there than is the length of Ulysses. Then we have a problem, right? Because that does not fit in the context window. And it's interesting because this may or may not be a problem in the future. Context windows could grow exponentially. We may not have the same problem, but right now it is a problem because as you adopt AI more and more, you realize how useful it can be when you connect it to other things like G Drive. But there's so many internal systems now, Slack and G Drive, and running a meeting, and you might have a video history. Like it's really useful to give it access to that, but not have the context window be saturated by it every time you want to have a chat. So this is where tools come in because, for example, you might want to read a web page and you might in ChatGPT see that there's like, oh, I can do a web search. This is a perfect example because web searches don't look up the entire internet. They just grab the bits of the internet that are interesting and useful and related to what you're doing. So if you have tools that can look at G Drive and you have tools that look at SharePoint, and you have tools that look at whatever else, they can search within those domains, extract the information that's relative based on a deterministic search, and none of that touches the LLM at all or uses your context window. But what it brings back is pulled into the context window and sent to the LLM, and then things can come back more interestingly. There's different strategies to make the most use of your context window. The limited resource, the box in which you cannot put more than the size of the box in. One of the things that AIs, just so you're aware, like software companies like OpenAI are doing now, is they're introducing this idea of subagents. And you may hear that and think it's like, it's esoteric, it's not important. But the more you want to do with AI, like the more the context window becomes a limitation. So what subagents do basically is there's sometimes a primary agent, sometimes they're all just siblings of one another, but they pass information back and forth and they say, go do this work, summarize, get a response, send it back to me, use whatever context window you need. And then when you get it back to me, it'll be a much smaller amount of information and I can process that within my context window. So that's one way they're working around it. Another one, and this works in another way, they're not making the context window bigger, but they are making the most use of the prompt that you've provided, these AI tools. So you might say, a small sentence, but if you put it in thinking mode, because there's these different modes with different models and everything, you can see in ChatGPT if you're paying for it, like you can choose thinking or not thinking, and thinking slower. But what it does is it applies in a simulated way reasoning, and what that reasoning does is adds additional context that you have not provided. Like, oh, what's the user asking for? Let me ask that. And these are all tokens it kind of builds up and then passes to the model. And what that does is it generates extra context for you on your behalf. And that's what the difference is between the Pelican and the Pelicant. So I didn't provide additional context in the sense of like a document or anything, but I did put it on thinking mode, and that's the difference between it working and kind of coming up with a half Pelican, half case. So if you've been avoiding thinking mode because it's coming back slower, depending on the type of problem, you might want to reconsider using that from time to time. As Connor said, sometimes the slower answers are better. Sometimes it's better to use these tools, not just in a way that you get fast, solutions, but like really thinking deeply about how you use them and choosing the slower option if it comes up with a better answer. So is more context always better? No. I cannot believe that Where Wally has shown up in 2 talks today, but here we are. What a world. We didn't coordinate. This just happened. but more context is not necessarily better. So if you just want to ask about the man with the cane and the striped shirt and the glasses, provide that. If you provide a bunch of other stuff, the LLM has to sort through it and figure out what to do. So whenever possible, constraining the context to what is only relevant to what you're trying to do right then is very useful. And I think a general rule of thumb applies here. I think Rose talked about this a little bit, where if you treat it like a person, kind of, even though they're not, and you imagine asking a stranger about your business, like going down the street and you ask them about your business, and you're imagining that's the prompt you're passing in. If they don't have enough context, if they don't have enough information to answer it, provide that too, because that context will be used by the LLM to kind of provide a much improved answer. And that rule of thumb holds pretty well, because we're reflecting back the language that it is trained on. So often it feels like you're doing a Google search, you want to use shorthand, but the more you talk to it like a person, even though it's not a person, very critical difference there. No reasoning, no critical thinking skills. If you talk to it like that, it recognizes the pattern of your speech and the pattern of the context, and it comes back with better, more useful answers. Hope you got the pen and paper ready, everyone. So this is, again, we didn't coordinate. Rose had similar thoughts, and I think this kind of shows a convergence to, what kind of problems we can solve right now. Like, what's the most difference that we can make with these tools in the immediate sense within businesses? So all this context window stuff, academic, very interesting, but how does it apply to your business? Well, if you brainstorm your processes, your problems, your goals, you just write down a bunch, spend 10 minutes doing this, and then identify, as Rose said, I can't believe, Rose, your presentation was very similar on this point. Time-consuming, boring, repetitive tasks, like, identify those. What do you not like doing? And I would start with yourself. Like, you can talk about it on behalf of your team or whatever, but like, if you get a taste of these tools and you understand what they do, it makes it easier for you to kind of light the fires across your organization. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can definitely work with someone within your team who already knows how to do these things or has an aptitude for it, and kind of learn from them as well. But make time for this experimentation, because it does pay off. So then, once you've identified the tasks that you do, and the ones that are boring and repetitive, process map that out. So say, like, okay, how do I know to do that task? Where's the entry point? And then work your way through the system until you say, oh, how do I know I'm done? And then that's it. That's your thing. And then once you do that, you can kind of write down how long each step takes and get an idea of where the value might be if you wanted to automate or even semi-automate. So, like, where do I just start using ChatGPT in this process? That's the semi-automation step. And then this is really important. What context is required for those steps? So you might need access to meeting notes, right? Or you might need access to things that don't exist. And that's a really key piece of information, because you might realize, like, oh, well, we talk about this all the time, but we never write it down. And now may be the time to start building into your process, like, oh, we need that context every time we do this process. It lives in everyone's heads. Maybe we should digitize it somehow. Maybe we should record the meeting and make sure the notation thing's on. And then, you just, ask yourself, can you automate it, or at least semi-automate it? And the answer is usually yes, as long as you have enough information at that point, enough context to pull in. And then you identify what tool's best for the job. So, I feel like there's a lot of people on the left there in the chat world, and those tools are very useful. And I've found moving toward the right and kind of the tools that are, built for repetitive processes that follow certain steps, but some of those steps could involve AI and be non-deterministic and could stop at a human in the loop, so you can weigh in on whether the process should finish or not. Like, those are very powerful. like N8N and LangGraph and Copilot Studio. And then agentic tools are extremely powerful, but also incredibly dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So make sure you got your security and governance in line, because there's a recent story on LinkedIn about somebody like deleting their family photos from their PC because they didn't realize like what the commands were doing in Claude Code. So Claude Code being different than the Claude chat app. But anyway, this is really like, do not let it do bad things. I think that's the main thing. Don't let it have access to documents that you have told other people through legal documents that it shouldn't have access to. So just gotta be really careful there. But if you are, then it becomes a big sandbox and you can do whatever you want. So that's me. I'm Jared. I love talking about AI. I'm a software engineer. I have an AI master's degree. This is just, I love process. I was a DevOps consultant, blah, 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 blah. Really love this stuff. Love talking about it. Love sharing about it. Love to see other people's fires get lit and start doing things. So yeah, follow
Brilliant.
me on LinkedIn, or even better, just connect with me. And thank you so much for your time.
That's great, Jared. Thanks so much. Thanks for walking us through. We're really bang on time now. So I'm actually going to say, if you have questions for Jared, redirect them to his LinkedIn, because as he says, he's a total enthusiast. So I'm sure he'd like to geek out on it and get some feedback and everything. Jared, thanks so much. That was absolutely brilliant. And thanks to everyone else for your time. Great seeing you again this month. We'll have another one on in March. So everyone who was registered today will get the recording and all the details about the speakers and all those details for next month. So have a great rest of your week, and I will see you guys next month. Bye.
Thanks.